So it's lesson 4. So we're going to create a new table in our AWS database. The script is here. If you're watching this code in your own time, grab the script that creates a publishers table and adds a publisher ID to the games table. Connect to your AWS database, and we're going to run the use command, paste it in, and now I'm just going to execute this whole thing. Okay, I've already got a publishers table. I guess I already ran the script, so I get a red X. No problem. If I want to check this, I can then just now look in my games table. If I run select star from games, if I just highlight that one, actually, I guess I need to do this first. Okay, so it already exists. So if I look at my games table now, I've got a new column at the end called publisher ID, and all the values are null. That's fine that they're null, because we already have some existing games in here. We'll update these later on. Next week, we'll work on updating so that we can attach publishers to our existing games. So here's what we're going to do. How many students we've got in class? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to use the breakout groups in Blackboard. And together in your breakout group, I want you to build 2 new pages. I want you to build publisher details that's going to have a form. And there's only going to be a single input on it. And that input will be for the publisher name. So just a text box and a save button. And you'll need validation. You want to make sure the publisher name is required. You're then going to build the save publisher page that will make sure the name is not empty. And if it isn't, it's going to save a new publisher into this new table that we created. So you're going to work on this. You can turn on your mics. Maybe one person in each group wants to share their screen. And you're going to work collaboratively on creating these 2 pages. You're allowed to ask for help, and we will go over the solution in a little while, before 1 o'clock. So together, you're going to be in a group of about 3 or 4 people. You're going to work together to build. You can share the code, build these pages, and then we're going to put this all together. Okay, it's not a test. It's a way for you to practice. And if you're building the form and save page, it's going to help you because you're going to have to do these things in your assignment on your own. So we did an example of these together 2 weeks ago. You're going to work in a group, and then you'll get to practice it again. The more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. Okay. Are there any questions from anybody before I start the breakout groups and pause the recording? Okay, so give me a second and I will move you into your breakout groups. So I've created 2 pages, 2 empty pages. I've got my publisher details and my save publisher. So you can either use the chat or you could use the paste bin site. What do we need here? Some group think that their publisher details form is good. You could just, if you want, you could just paste the body of your form. It's fairly short. Paste it in the chat and I'll add it to mine. If you think your publisher details form is pretty good. Okay, thanks. Chris and Colton, appreciate that. So I'll just grab this. All right. So I've got a form with a method of post. It's going to go to save publisher. I'm going to make one change here. This would work. It's okay. It's not wrong. But normally, let's look at what our column is called we were saving to. The column is called name. So if we're going to insert a name, I think I'm going to use this term in my form. Rather than calling it publisher in the form, but name in the database, for consistency, I'm going to use name everywhere. Not wrong to call it publisher, but the other thing is we've limited, you've said max length is 25, but we're actually allowing up to 100 characters in our table. So I'm going to use 100 characters here as well. So thank you, Colton and team. I'll just load this up in my browser. So now if I go to publisher details, right, I get a label, a text box, and a submit button. And it's required as well. That's great. So let's have a look at our save page. So Chris, I'll use your repository. Thanks for doing that. So you've got save publisher. So I'll grab what's here. Don't worry, I won't use your password. I'm going to grab all the PHP code in the body. Okay, so we've copied this. We've got to make some changes here. Thank you for sharing, but what changes do we need to make? What should we do here? Do we have inputs called title, release year, and rating on our publisher page? Right. We only have one input, and what's that input called? It's not called title in this case. What's it called instead? Right. So we're using our post input called name. We're going to store that in a variable. So immediately my code editor now underlines title. It says title's undefined. So I'm going to change my if statement to check that name is not empty. I can get rid of this other validation around release year. Right? We don't need it. We only have a single input called name. I'm going to change the database to use my own. We can also we need to modify our SQL command. So how do we modify this insert statement? What changes should we make to it? What table are we going to save to on this page? Are we saving a game? Or are we saving something else? Thank you, Ariel. We're going to insert to publishers. We're only inserting into one column in the publishers table. What's that column called? Thank you.
What column is publisher?
Nope, the column is name.
Column is name.
Right. Tables, publishers, the name column. We only need one parameter because we're passing in only one value. So our SQL insert is a lot shorter. We're going to make a few changes here on line 30. What do we want to change on line 30? There's 3 changes we need to make here. How do we modify line 30? Yep. We'll change the parameter and the variable. Thank you, Jake. And we're going to change the max length as well. What do we do with lines 31 and 32? Thank you. We don't need them. We only have one parameter. We only need to fill one. And then maybe we'll just print out, I don't know, we'll print publisher saved. I'll publish all this code in just a second, but I want to try it out and make sure it works now. So we're going to get the name from our form, put it in a variable. We're going to make sure it's not empty. And if it's not, we're going to insert the name into the publisher's table. So I'm going to try this. So let's add a few game publishers. What are the names of some game publishers we might want in our game store? Okay, thanks, Jake. Let's add. I'll add Riot Games. Okay, whoops, we got an error. Let's see what happened. Whoops, we missed here a $sign. So in my variable, we're missing the $sign, so this throws an error. So I've got to make sure I put this $sign in front. I'll just refresh. Okay, publisher saved. I'll go back and add a few more. I'll add Nintendo. And I'll add EA. Okay, thanks for the suggestions. I'll add each one of these in my form. And now I'm going to go to my database and I want to check and make sure that all these 5 or 6 publishers are in my table. So if I run this command now, I'll put it in the chat. And I'll upload the completed pages in a minute. So if I run select star from publishers, I now have, I did save it twice. That's okay, I'll delete it later. So now every time I fill out my form, we can save a new publisher. Now they're not connected up to the games. We'll do that next week. I wanted to give you some practice building another form, building another save page. So now we can save to the database. So this exercise that we just did, yeah, you can add as many as you like to your own database. So the exercise we just did, these 2 pages you built, this is similar to what you're building in the assignment. Plus what you did for lab 1. All right, I'm going to upload these changes to GitHub. So this is lesson 5, part 2, lesson 4, part 2, publishers pages. Okay, so all of the code is on GitHub. I'll put the link in the chat for you again if you need any of it.
Okay.
All right, let us take a 10-minute pause. And when we come back, we're going to leave this alone and we're going to start to look at using GitHub. You're going to be using it an awful lot during your time here. So we're going to do an introduction. I know some of you, Chris, you already know a little bit about it, which is great. We're going to go over Git and how to use it. So we will do that when we come back in 10 minutes.